I do sort of dream of getting back into an R32 one of these days. That's a super fun car. It is, in my opinion, it drives better than a lot of the Porsches and BMWs, a lot of those cars you see out there. This thing is sweet.
That right there is what we like to call a hot take.
I think it drives in a lot of ways better than a Porsche.
Wow.
Yeah.
From Maine's cold coast to Connecticut pride, Vermont's green hills, take it all in stride. Massachusetts traffic, we grip and we grind with a Dunkin' iced coffee and no peace of mind. So New England stands up proud. Shouters think we shout it loud. From Fenway Chance to Rhode Island Tide, New Hampshire's cry, live free or die. So New England with Ian Brownhill.
Good friggin' morning from New England, folks. Welcome back to episode 7 of the So New England podcast, Business Spotlight. I am your host, flying solo today, Ian Brownhill. You guys know me, no producer, no RJ, but that is because they've got big boy jobs and I'm over here just playing fun on the internet. But for good reason. Today, I am with a good friend, now a business partner. As you guys may or may not have seen, I have been driving around in a nice new whip, compliments of the gentleman that I have with me today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce owner of Scott's Volkswagen in East Providence, Rhode Island, Brad Scott.
Hey, Ian, how's it going?
Very good. Thank you so much for being on the pod with me today.
Yeah, I'm really glad to be here.
So let's say we connected because of your wife. Thank you so much, Lily, who will be on here to talk about her soups and scoops very soon. She had reached out because I was previously working with a car dealership and I have been doing this fun partnership where I'm able to promote local businesses or a car company for this example. And we were able to put me in a nice Tiguan R line. So thank you very much for that.
My pleasure, and thank you to my wife Lily for the connection.
Yes.
If it weren't for her, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I am spoiled rotten, but I think it's very, very admirable what you guys have been doing here. I think it's great how awesome of a dealership this is. A good friend of mine also has good, ties and connections. His father works here, so this is like very Rhode Island for me to be working with you. So I think some of my favorite stuff that you guys have in here is like some of these old school Volkswagen vans and just kind of the decor and the memorabilia that you carry around. But more importantly, there is a wonderful story to be told as to how we've gotten to where we are now in 2026. So if you don't mind, Brad, can you tell me your story? How did you end up here? Tell me your family lineage. I want to hear it all.
Sure, absolutely. My grandfather started the company back in 1948. He was stationed in Germany in World War II. And when he got out of the war and came back and got to work, he always loved cars. So he was going up and down Route 44 here looking for a job. And he came across an old Packard dealership, which is over where there's a Toyota store there now down the road. And he knocked on the door, and it was a group of businessmen from Chicago who I guess were losing their shirts in this dealership, and they were getting ready to close the thing down. And so he actually, I take it back. He had started sweeping floors at the place, got a job sweeping floors there to start. And he learned doing that the guys were losing money, and they were getting ready to pack it up, close it down, and head back to Chicago. So he made a deal with them and just said, hey, if you'll give me a shot at running this place, if I make you guys your money back, can I have the store? And so he made a deal with them, and a few months later, he turned the thing in, made it profitable, and they honored their word, and they gave him the store.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really a wild story that you wouldn't really hear that today.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. What an awesome story.
And so then he had a Packard dealership. He was young at that age. He was like in his late 20s. And then when he found out that VW was looking to enter the U.S., this is getting into the mid 50s, he remembered seeing the VWs when he was over in Germany, and he thought that those are going to be a good car. Those are going to be a good seller. So he raised his hand and applied to be a Volkswagen dealer. He lied on the application, became the youngest Volkswagen dealer in the country because you're supposed to be 30 years old to be a dealer, but he was only 28 or something. And so he was able to he got the VW store, and then not too long after that, the Packard went out of business, and so then it was just Volkswagen. And I'm familiar with the VW history. He did have Chrysler Plymouth for a while, and my father did as well. That history isn't as fun, so I don't really know much about it. But my grandfather built and opened a new dealership, which was where we lived. Scott Volkswagen lived up until 2011 or so, over on Newport Avenue in East Providence. And that's where I was raised in the business. And, at some point my father came in. My father was working in New York City, and my grandfather was looking to take a step back. So my father came into the business, and he started, he ran the store for 35, 40 years. After my grandfather, he, during that time, got rid of Chrysler Plymouth and became a standalone VW store. And he was, my father was my mentor in the business. He kind of showed me the way. I've still got a plaque on my desk over there that says, well done is better than well said. Lip service doesn't go too far in my family. So,
I like that saying though.
Yeah. Then I got into the business when I was maybe in my early 20s. So that would have been 2006 or something like that. I don't know. And so I've been at it for 25 years or so now. In 2011, which was also the same year I got married, 2010, we bought this location where we're at now, and we set about redoing the building and getting it ready for VW standards. All the same time was planning my wedding and getting everything. So I think I got married within 2 weeks of the store opening.
Oh, wow. That doesn't sound stressful at all.
It was a little stressful, but it was all wonderful stress and all really good things. And so, we've been here ever since 2011 now. So it's going on, 15, 16 years, and, really happy to be here. It's been a great move for us. It's a much nicer facility, much more space. I have an office now.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Nice office, by the way, as we're sitting here filming in it.
Yeah.
So what was it about Rhode Island that made you want to stay? Because you could have gone anywhere. Is East Providence specifically have a specific hold on you or something that made you want to stay here from a business perspective?
I mean, we're Rhode Islanders, so that's ultimately, because I did leave Rhode Island for a while. I went to college up in Vermont, and then I went out to California for a couple of years after college. And there's a pull that pulls you back here as a New Englander, and as a Rhode Islander. I just started to kind of miss home, and I also realized the opportunity that the business presented for me after working some other jobs. I was like, wait a minute, this is a pretty good opportunity. And so I came back east and lived in Boston for a little while, sort of knocking on the door, asking my father for a job, and he kept giving me the stiff arm, saying, no, you need to go do your thing for a while. And finally, he said, he was tired, and he just said, fine, come on back. And, I started working in service as a service writer. I worked in parts. I worked all the different jobs. When I was a kid, I had the worst jobs when I was a kid. I remember, I'll never forget the smell of I had to scrape and paint the men's restroom.
Oh, bro.
It was brutal. But,
builds character.
It builds character. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And so here we are. And then I sort of took over when I came back in. I was working in service and stuff. And my father basically was sort of absentee at that point. He was spending a lot of his time in Florida. And, I sort of gave him a call and just said, what are we doing here? Like, if you either got to come back up here and you got to work with me and show me what's going on here, or I got to go to school. And so we did a little bit of both. He came back, he held my hand a bit, and I did go to a National Auto Dealers Association has a school for dealers and training.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So I did that in 2016, I think that was, and that really made a big difference in the way the store performed and my confidence and everything. And then since then, it's really just been about trying to surround myself with good people. My sister's in the business with me, which I love. So I come in, I chat with her every morning, and
that's wonderful. That's always rewarding.
It's nice because it keeps the family, unit intact.
Right.
It's nice, and then it's just you are who you surround yourself with, and I just put a ton of emphasis on, making sure that first and foremost we have really, really good people with integrity, who are honest around us, and everything else we can basically teach. So been very, very lucky. We've got really good management now, and it's been a really good ride, so I can't complain.
I love that. Now, this is your only location, correct? This is the only Scott VW location?
It is our only location. Yeah. There's, we've thought about growing and doing other things. It's, I've always wanted to say, like, I've always wanted to be the best at what we do. And there's plenty of work here to keep us inspired and keep us going. And also don't want to overcomplicate things. But I do have my eyes open at all times looking for opportunities. So you never know.
Expansion is a possibility then.
Possibility.
What was the first car you ever had?
My first car was a 1985 Golf, a four-door Golf that didn't have power steering. I love that car. And it was so fun. My friends and I, we would, because it didn't have power steering, we would go back it into a spot, and we just get the rear end in, and we'd all jump out, get out, and just pick up the front and put it into the spot, because it was this tiny little car. And it was really fun. The guys here, I don't think my dad ever even knew, but the guys here gave me a catalog with like cool horns and things like that. And they're like, hey, if you want any of this stuff, let us know. We'll install it for you. So I got like a tugboat horn installed on it. So whenever I had a friend in front of me parked or something, I could just lay on the horn. It would be a big tugboat, boom.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
Yeah. So it was fun.
I love that. And what would you say, like, ultimately for you was always the best car from Volkswagen then? Do you have a biased opinion on that?
I do have a biased opinion. My first car was a Golf.
Right.
And then as I worked in the business, I started having the opportunity to drive like the GTIs and then the R32, which is the all-wheel drive souped up GTI. And that R32 is my favorite car. I drove that car for years. And then, I've got two little kids and two big dogs, or one big dog. And so it's not too practical for me now, but I do sort of dream of getting back into an R32 one of these days. That's a super fun car. It drives better than, in my opinion, it drives better than a lot of the Porsches and BMWs, a lot of those cars you see out there. This thing is sweet.
Wow. I have to be honest with you. I know this is all unfamiliar to you, but that right there is what we like to call a hot take in the podcasting world, because we're going to clip that and put it on the internet and see what the car guys, if they agree with your statement there about being like a Porsche. I don't know.
I think it drives in a lot of ways better than a Porsche.
Wow. Yeah. All right. See, I'm not much of a car guy. Like I love a beautiful car. I love a nice car, but I just knowledge wise, I fall pretty short. I'm like, if it's got all the gizmos and gadgets and it smells brand new, I am in. That's just always how I've been.
Yeah.
Is there an advantage for you as a business owner in Rhode Island in comparison to other dealerships, being that you only have the single location? Do you feel like that helps you and gives you an advantage in any capacity because you're able to specialize the experience for customers?
Oh, absolutely. I think our big advantage in being smaller than some of these big guys is that we can respond and move very, very quickly to things. So if the market changes, like during COVID, we were able to just really make some adjustments very, very quickly and make sure that we were going to be okay. And so that's been, very helpful. And it's also nice because I get to have a relationship with everybody. So it's not a corporate environment at all. It's very, very family friendly. And we run this store very differently than a lot of these corporate giants. When you come in, when you have a multiple store operation, it's hard to train that many people and get them up to speed with the way you want things done. So you have to have all of this oversight, this management, where it's like, if you come in to buy a car and you want a better price, well, let me go talk to my manager. And you got some little sales guy running back and forth to a manager and doing all that stuff.
Right.
And, here we train our salespeople basically to be managers. So if you come in to buy a car from us, you're not going to deal with that back and forth. I got to go talk to my manager. I got to do this. I got to do that. They're going to be able to make that deal right in front of you, and you're going to work with one person throughout the process, and hopefully build a long-term relationship. And I think because of that, we have a really good track record and a long tenured employees here. I think we've got a young salesman now who just started with us a few months ago, but other than that, for the most part, we've got, I think the 10 years experience minimum in sales just here with us.
Wow.
And, my GM has been with us for 10 or 15 years now, out in service. Some of our mechanics have been with us 35 years.
Wow.
I go around almost on a weekly basis asking some of these guys when they're going to retire, because I got to find out what I'm going to do when they retire. But no, we have a good pipeline too. So we're it's all good.
No, and I think that's a testament though, as a business owner to have built not necessarily like this empire, but this stronghold, this good footprint in the Rhode Island community, but as an employer to have people that are wanting to stay that long. Because I think that the stereotypes that we've mentioned before in the industry of car sales and in the industry of car services, there's just such a negative connotation, right? Because when people come for a service, 9 times out of 10, it's already a problem in their lives, whether that's financially, whether that's because they were driving to work and their car broke down. So they're already coming in with a bad attitude. And then having to hear a price tag, because obviously these things cost money, it's really hard. But when you have a family oriented business like yours, I feel like you're mitigating the process and relieving the frustration because you're like, at the end of the day, yes, buying a car costs money, getting service done costs money. But if the experience is good and it makes you want to return so that you're doing even the smallest things like getting an oil change, like a lot of people can do that, or a lot of people can go to like a Jiffy Lube really quick in and out. But if they're enjoying the experience with you, if they like to come in because you've got a beautiful waiting room, you've got the snacks, you've got entertainment, all that kind of stuff, it's a testament to the fact that you're doing a really good job. And for us on the podcast, having the business spotlight is to highlight the fact that there are so many individuals such as yourself that have done such great work within the community. So as a Rhode Island business owner though, is it tough to do business in Rhode Island?
Uh, I mean, I think business is tough. Everything's tough, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's no free lunch. There's nothing's easy. But that's really all I know. So is it any tougher than anything else? No, I think it's great doing business in Rhode Island because it's such a small community and being a smaller business. It's nice because we can really earn that trust with people, because if somebody comes in and they've got a issue with their car, say they got a problem that nobody can fix, and we try to fix it and we can't fix it. If that happens, then we can sit down with them, and they will, I will sit down with them personally as the owner, and we'll sit down and we'll get on the phone with Volkswagen and we'll work on their behalf, and we'll work as a team to try to help and resolve a problem. We'll get VW's engineers, we'll do whatever we need to do to try to help the customer fix a problem. And again, I think a lot of the big companies, there's a point where there's a diminishing return for them to keep going down that road. And for me, the return is a relationship and that trust and that community and just feeling good about helping people. So, yeah, that's what I'd have to say.
Well, I think it's that statement that you made. Well done is better than well said. And it's at the end of the day, if you're coming here and you're getting work done properly on your car, or if you're buying a vehicle and it's an expedited process that's enjoyable with a long-term relationship with a dealership.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. And
rather than all the billboards and everyone promising, if you come in now, we'll do this. If you come in and get this service. And then there's always some caveat that's super frustrating, that's distracting from the enjoyment of the process and the excitement of buying a new car or finally fixing a car. So I love that. The well done is better than well said. Is going to stick with me, I think.
And I should clarify, there isn't too much that we don't fix. Sometimes the VW engineers call us, and we get a lot of the problem cars from the area that wind up here because of the talent that some of our mechanics have. So we're pretty proud of that too.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now I'd love to kind of talk about the difficulties now in the digital world. How has that been for you as a business owner and as a car dealer to deal with the fact that it's no longer people cutting out magazine, articles saying, oh, here's this new car, let me go check it out. Now everyone comes in incredibly well informed on price points and competition in the area, and also online car sales. You have these car delivery services now. How has that been for you as a business owner, and how have you still been able to separate yourself from for a buyer's experience?
Yeah, I mean, things are definitely changing and have been for quite some time, but the underlying sort of rules to doing good business are the same, which is you just treat people well, and word of mouth is the best form of advertising. So all this other stuff, it comes, it goes. Sometimes it spooks me a little bit, but I don't worry about it too much. I think we just keep our heads down, keep doing what we're doing, keep treating people right. It has changed the business as far as to the customer's benefit. Everything is much more transparent. I mean, everything is on the internet, and I'd say almost all I'd say most dealerships now have gone to a single price because we're all competing online with one another. So you're not having to come in and haggle the way it used to be. Basically, the price you see on the internet is already way, way below MSRP. And it's much easier to just come in and just buy the car. So, and then some of these new tools, like these AI tools, are really cool. We use them now for after hours when people, write in on the website, or now we've got one that answers the phone for us when we're not here. And the one that answers the phone when we're not here, it'll make an appointment for you. It can do all kinds of things that, we would have been missing that business before. So we try to pick and choose and see what works and see what doesn't. And, just hope, hopefully nothing changes too drastically.
Yeah.
But, that's it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And now, is there anything about the car industry as a whole that, and we can use that word again, stereotypes, that, I don't know, maybe frustrate you, or maybe some stereotypes or misunderstandings that people have about the buying a car experience? For example, coming in and saying like, oh, I know that you can give it to me for less, or I know that you're trying to do this on the back end, or any of those things. Like, what misconceptions can we just kind of like nick so that people can understand that it's a lot more straightforward than most people are led to believe?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are bad actors in every field. And it's unfortunate that historically there were a lot of them in the car business back in like the 80s, or I don't know, whenever it happened. It's never been my experience. My friends, I'm on the Rhode Island Automobile Dealers Association. I work with other dealers, and they're all wonderful, wonderful people who I would very much trust with, almost anything. So that being said, there's a couple of bad actors out there. I won't name names, but so one actor kind of ruins it for the rest of us. So as far as buying a car and getting better pricing and things like that, I think there's very, very little room to negotiate on a new car price. That's one big misconception. People see a $50,000 car and think we're making $10,000 or $40,000 or something on it. And the reality is, it used to be we might make $1,000 or $2 on it. Nowadays, we basically, and this is true for almost all dealers, we basically give the new cars away for very little, sometimes negative profit. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to earn a customer. We're trying to buy a customer. And, if we can build that relationship with you, and if you can come back to service, and we can kind of bring you into our whole, ecosystem here, that means much more to us than trying to get some big, gross profit on a sale of a car. So there really is not a lot of profit in new cars. So when people come in to, demanding better deals and things like that, sometimes we just can't. Sometimes we do if we can, and we'll take a haircut.
Yeah.
But that kind of negotiation is really going away in the business because the margins just aren't there. Yeah.
And is there any sort of like benefit to paying with cash? I feel like that's often like, if you pay with cash, things will be different. And I'm always like, will you though? I don't know. Is that beneficial? I mean, obviously it's a heck of a lot less paperwork for you guys because you're able to just take the cash and get, sell the car right on the spot versus dealing with banks and cutting checks and this and that. But
yeah, that's basically it doesn't make a difference to us. It just saves time because there's a lot of paperwork when it comes to the financing and and in order to get the financing, you got to make sure your registrations and all that stuff is handled. So, cash make it a little quicker transaction. That's about it.
And if you were going to give advice to a buyer, like what would you express to someone that's in the market for buying a car? What kind of things should they be looking out for just so that people can kind of be more prepared in your professional opinion?
Yeah, I think all the cars, if you're looking at a VW at my dealership or a VW at another dealership, the car is basically the same. So really you want to evaluate the people you're buying it from and the kind of relationship when it comes to service. So many people, nobody thinks about that. They're like, they buy a car and they think they're never going to need anything. But I think service is very important. So, and on that regard, I would I always recommend, if you're buying the car, an extended warranty is just good peace of mind, and they're not junk. A lot of like internet gurus and stuff will say, they're going to try to sell you all these extended vehicle plans and all this stuff. Like, we don't offer anything that's junk, and maybe some dealerships might push more products than not, but in general, extended warranties really make a lot of sense. It's a ton of peace of mind, and you hit a curb in one of these new fancy rims. I mean, those rims are like $1,500, and that's basically the cost of a warranty that'll cover it. So, I think it makes a lot of sense. One thing, and this is a little bit of a, as you would say, maybe a hot take. If customers are out shopping, you want to ask what a dealer's doc fee is. That's a documentation fee. And in Rhode Island, we are capped at I think I forget if it's 200 or 400 now, but it's capped. And so it's basically the same in Rhode Island. But if you're looking out of state in Massachusetts or Connecticut, some of those doc fees can be astronomical, and they don't disclose that until you get to the end.
Right. When you're already sold, you're tired, you're excited at the same time, and you're like, whatever, just tack it on to my payment.
I mean, you think, and you think you got this great deal, and then all of a sudden you got another $800-900 coming, that they're getting you for. So, that's something to just be aware of. But most importantly, I think, is just make sure you like the person that you're working with and you're buying from, and you like the location, and you like the people that you're in the dealership, because you're going to be back there more than likely.
I think that I've often had a discussion about the buying process for a lot of people in my life about buying a brand new car versus a used car, because I feel like there's a massive difference between a dealership that is selling new cars, or often certified pre-owned cars or used vehicles themselves that have been serviced properly here, versus going to the middle of absolutely nowhere to a used car dealer. Cause it's like, oh, well, this one's got the same mileage, but it's, it's 2 years, newer, and it's $5,000 less. And it's often like, oh, that's usually for a reason, but the used car dealership is often where that bad rep still kind of lingers because of the experience between buying a new car or anything. So I say that long-windedly to ask you, what is your opinion on buying a used car and what people should look out with that?
Used cars are a little bit trickier, a little bit more of the Wild West when you get outside of the dealership world. I would say if you're going to buy a used car, buy it from a reputable used dealer. And if you don't know a reputable used dealer, buy it from a reputable new car dealer. And, the internet shows you the reviews. You can sort of tell who's reputable and who's not. If possible, buy it certified. That's backed by the factory, and that gives you, depending on the program, I can't really speak to it, but for Volkswagen, it's a 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty, and that's basically like an extension of the factory warranty. So sometimes if you can buy a used car, if you buy like a year or two old used car that still has factory warranty, so with VW, it's a 560 factory warranty. So if there's 3 years of that left, and then the 2-year 24, you can wind up with a better warranty than you did on a new one.
No kidding. Yeah. There you go.
And you get
nearly 100,000 in a matter of 8 years.
And then you get the savings, because it's a used car. Right. So there's definitely benefits. The used car market right now is kind of crazy because new car prices have been creeping upwards, and so people are starting to say, well, that's a little too expensive, so they're all going to the used cars. So the demand for used cars is now going up, which means the prices of used cars are now going up.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's something to keep in mind. But
now, just to kind of harp on the warranty, here at Scott Volkswagen, you guys offer the Scott Volkswagen 1-year program.
Yeah, this is a new program. We just launched it really a couple months ago. We call it the Scott Bonus Plan.
Bonus Plan. There we go. I knew I was messing that one up. I probably should have known that because it's in my next video. Stay tuned for that.
And it's a 1-year warranty that we offer completely free for any new car purchase, and that gives you free key replacement. And those keys are expensive. Those are $200-300 a key. Free key replacement, free roadside assistance, free windshield repair, free ding and dent repair, free tire and wheel repair, all totally on us for the first year of ownership.
Wow.
So
that's a huge value.
It is a huge value. It's over a $580 value that we figured out how to just incorporate into our business plan. And it's, and, we did it because, everybody is shopping price.
Right.
And we can compete on price all day long, but we wanted to differentiate ourselves somehow and do something that nobody else was doing. So this is what we did. And so not only are you going to get the best price, but you're also going to get all these extras. So that's the idea.
And I will say it goes a long way, because quick little sidetrack story here. I bought a vehicle. This is my first time ever buying a vehicle from a dealership by myself as an adult. I was 21 and I went to a dealership in Connecticut. And I bought a Hyundai Sonata, and it was a great car. I got it for a fair price. Everything was really good. And I was working at the mall up the street, just up the street from it. And the windshield wiper blade rubbed off in the middle of driving. It just like the rubber just like ripped right off. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. So like I'm on my way to work. I'll swing by and ask. And I went in and they wouldn't even give me a free windshield wiper less than 8 days after I bought the car. I was like, I just bought this. I was like, this isn't like 9 months later after normal wear and tear. Like I just left the lot with this 8 days ago. I've used it 3 times and they wouldn't replace it. And from there on, I was like, you've lost a customer instantly. So my next 2 vehicle purchases were down the street from them, because I was like, there's no way like that to me. And I get it, because from a business perspective, you have to make your profit. And maybe I was a little bit younger, so I was a lot more broke, and it was a little bit harder for me to go and buy a $40 windshield wiper because I was making $10 an hour. But still, like for me, that was one of those experiences where I was like, so now for you specifically, we're talking about, as you mentioned, a $1,500 wheel, and now there's ding and dent repair, there's wheel and tire. You're giving a full scope of work. I'm sure that there's, of course, stipulations depending, don't ram your car into the side of a curb and expect it to be free. But, it's like, that's a huge asset for a lot of individuals who are searching for a car. So it's a great way to separate yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. We hope it's been really well received so far. So yeah.
Wonderful. All right. So for the future of like Volkswagen, I feel like cars are changing all the time. How have you felt about the transition from like the old buggies and here you've got 2 like the camper vans? Those have been a little bit revamped too, right? The like the vans. I don't know what they're called. I'm sorry.
The Yeti Buzz.
I'm like that's so cool. But how has that transition been for you? Do you like seeing all the new technology, or do you think that it's like, the Volkswagen still finds a way to like stay true to their roots?
I think the new technology is awesome.
Yeah.
I think these EVs are underrated in a lot of ways. They're so cool, and they might be some of, the R32 has a special place in my heart, but the new EVs, the torque on them, it's like instant power.
Yeah.
So they are really, really fun to drive. Do I sort of, I think VW has an asset with the nostalgia piece that they could lean into a little more, which is why we, as a dealer, try to do it more here. That's where the rock star murals and the old buses and the Beatles.
Very cool. It's very, very cool in here for anyone who's never been.
Yeah. My mentor in the business was a dealer in Florida who had done a lot of this kind of cool stuff, and I remember. VW introduced me to him on like a pilot program where we were going to try to spice up the look of the showroom a little bit with some of this kind of retro stuff. And I remember meeting him, and he was the largest Volkswagen dealer in the world.
Wow.
And I was a young kid when I met him. And I was like in my 20s. And so I remember like chasing him around with like a notepad, being like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? He stopped, and he had like long hair and like a beard. He had like a Jesus look to him.
Oh, yeah, of course. And that's what I think of when I think of the Volkswagen van. Yeah. So,
I remember he stopped me. He just stopped, and he turned around slowly, and he like got down low and looked right into my eyes, and he just said, "Brad, get out of the car business and get into the entertainment business." And that stuck with me a lot. So, we try to do car shows. We sometimes we'll get live music here on Saturdays, get a guitar player just to be here and spice things up and make it interesting. We've got the fish tank in the showroom was built by the guys from the TV show Tanked.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No kidding. How cool is that?
They built that. We were trying to get on the show, but we couldn't because it has a VW and there was like logo infringements.
Always something with that.
Yeah. Anyways, but they built that in Vegas. and we trucked it out here from Vegas from their headquarters out there and installed it. And it's really cool because we see people come in and all of this is kind of just trying to disarm people, because people come into dealerships and they think that there's something fishy going on, and so we really just try to make it fun and cool. So people, kind of let down their guard and just, act like regular people. That's because we're all just here trying to help. So,
right.
Yeah.
Now, the whole entire phrase of German engineering versus American muscle engineering, is there really a truth to that? Is there really something totally different going on there? And if there is, what is occurring? Are you totally aware of that? Like, what separates it that makes it so good or so different?
Yeah. So I will preface this by saying that I am not a technical guy, so I don't know too much. We could get one of my mechanics in here to talk about the specifics. I do think there is something to it. I think, sorry, my phone's ringing.
That's right.
There's definitely something to it. What I always like to tell customers out in the showroom when they're comparing us to, one of the domestics or something is I open the door and I will hang on the door, and I'll literally take my full weight and just hang on the door and like shake it. And it's super solid. And if you do that on anything but a German engineered car, you're going to break the door off. And so there's definitely something to it. And then I think too, as far as the drivability and just the smoothness of the ride. And again, not being technical, this is just my subjective interpretation, because I've driven all of the different cars and everything. There's something to the ride. There is something about the smoothness of the shifting. There's something to it. Does it have as much power as some of these, domestic muscle cars and stuff? No, they everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. But I mean, I to be honest with you, and maybe again, this might come back to the fact that I'm not much of a car guy, but if the argument that it has muscle, I'm like, where is that good? We have speed limits everywhere. Like I've never quite understood the obsession. I think it's really cool if you have the throwaway cash to go get in a Lamborghini or Ferrari, go for it.
Sure.
But to buy a house on wheels that still has to do the same miles per hour as any sort of Jetta or Tiguan or Teos or anything else, I'm like, why spend the extra $300,000 to get that car? Unless you're going to take it to a track, sure, but then you're risking your life doing circles when you're not that good of a driver. I don't know. I've never quite understood it. I think they're beautiful to look at. Sure, it's cool, but like in my mind, I'm like, I would rather have a car that's just like solid and safe for me and any passengers and, maybe one day a family. Like,
yeah.
And if it's a car that you can do those type of things with, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I'm definitely get me from A to B as quickly and efficiently as possible, and reliably as possible. And
Right.
VWs are really good at all that. I get the Ferraris and all that stuff because those are really works of art.
Yeah,
it's a different.
They're
animal.
beautiful. They're cool,
Yeah,
but
they're really cool. But no, VW's been a good family business for us because they build good cars. So it's really easy for us to lean into it and represent the brand because it's been a good brand and they continue to build pretty good cars. So we're really happy with the quality that they put out. And we think we've got some really cool options for people right now. I mean, you talk about having a family. My wife and I, we both drive Atlases because we've got 2 kids and I've got a Newfoundland dog and another little dog. And, we all play sports. I like to surf, we ski, we're all over the place. And these Atlases are awesome. They're fantastic. Yeah, the 7-seater, but they're not too big. It's not like those like.
Well, I'm saying space wise, they're just like it's quite shocking when you look at the outside how much room there is on the inside.
Yeah, they're great, and they've got all the bells and whistles. And so we both, like I said, we both have one of those right now. We've been driving them now for years, and so that's probably not our. I think it's probably running neck and neck with the Tiguan as our biggest seller right now. And the Tiguans are awesome too. Well,
yeah, they're wonderful. Yeah. I love it. I literally said this, and I know this is going to sound incredibly biased, but I tell you guys, I have had a lot of cars in my life, mostly used cars, and I was never really my middle brother Sullivan. He is the Volkswagen guy. He's had like 3 or 4 Jettas, a Golf. He rebuilt one from scratch. This was like his world. So I was always around Volkswagen, but I've always been a BMW guy my entire life, and I went from having a brand new X1 to being in this brand new R-Line Tiguan. And I kid you not, I have been converted. I genuinely mean that. Even if our partnership ends tomorrow, I will still stand by that statement because it just is a great ride. Because I've always been someone like, I want to like be comfortable, but I also want to feel the road. Like I want to feel like I'm driving the car and I'm not just like in a cloud, or I'm not just like getting shocked by every little bump that I hit. And I don't know, the Tiguan does it.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm surprised with so what's the deal behind the Teos release? Because it's just like, it almost to me feels like the Teos is the same size model as the older Tiguans, and the Tiguan's got a little bit bigger.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're trying to find that, I guess the complaint about the first Tiguan was that it was too small, so they made it bigger. And then when they made it bigger, people wanted the old size Tiguan. So the Tahoe is more of kind of it's like a stepping stone. So the Tahoe is kind of the entry level SUV, and then you get into the Tiguan, then you get into Cross Sport, and then you get into the full size Atlas. So it's kind of, small to big kind of a thing.
And SUVs have kind of been the way of the future, right? I feel like are they selling much better, the SUVs, than they are the sedans and the two doors and smaller vehicles? Yeah,
for sure. We sell probably 80% of our sales are SUVs now. We still sell a good amount of Jettas and a decent amount of Golfs and GTIs every month, but the majority of our sales are Tiguan, Atlas, Tahoes.
If you could rank Volkswagen cars, and you can sprinkle in any old favorites that you have, but do you think you could like rank, like not best to worst, but like your favorites? Like if you were going to recommend them, how would they go?
Old cars too, like classics?
Yeah, if you want to include them, go for it. But I mean, realistically, I guess from a sales perspective, what you have available now.
So if I was to rank them, well, it depends what your needs are.
Right.
Again, I mean, if you're a young urban professional and you don't have a lot of commitments and a ton of free cash, get yourself an R32, definitely. But if you have a family and you are looking for a good commuter car that's still got a little punch, then the Atlas is awesome. And if you are sort of in between, sort of like where you are right now, thinking about a family and things like that, then the Tiguan will get you there. It'll get you there with one kid. You get another kid, then you're gonna need a bigger car probably. But it's so yeah, it really depends. And a lot of them, the German engineering and the Volkswagen style, they like incorporate this DNA into all their cars, and I don't even know how they totally do it. And again, we could maybe talk to one of my mechanics someday, but they all drive and have this very similar feel, and it's unique to Volkswagen. Even Audi a little bit. VW and Audi share a lot of technology, but even with Audi, I notice it's a little bit different sometimes. But there's just something very Volkswagen about driving a Volkswagen.
It feels very centered.
Yeah,
like it feels like a very centered car. Like it's the perfect balance of everything.
Yeah,
of technology, of smoothness, of a good pickup, a good drive.
Yeah.
Because. Like when I was in the car market before, I drove quite a few different cars because like I don't know what I want just yet, and the price point on a lot of the cars were very similar, which is how I still ended up with the BMW. But like at the time, I was like I went and I drove a Kia, like the Sportage, and it was the same price as a BMW, and I was shocked. I was like, man, Kia must really have outdone themselves. And then the car was impressive to look at, and it had all the bells and whistles. But when I hit that gas pedal to merge, it was like, I was like, this is like 2-cylinder, and that to me was like the separator where I was like, oh, okay. Like I mentioned, I prefer to drive. So
yeah. And that's the thing that, we wish we could get more eyeballs on the Volkswagen brand, because price wise, we're right there with all of these other brands.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, because we haven't been on people's shopping lists, before, they don't really give us the look. But when they get in and they get behind the wheel of the car and they realize what they're getting for the same price of what they were paying for one of those other brands, it's night and day. I think you just get a lot more bang for your buck with a VW.
Absolutely. And I think it's like I don't want to use the word cult because I don't want it to sound negative, but I feel like if you're a VW, like that's why they say a VW guy, like my brother-in-law has a VW key tattooed on his forearm. My brother has, you know what I mean? Like
he could work here. We've got probably 5 or 6 employees that have VW tattoos all over.
There you go. I mean, it's just like, it's like a cult following. It's like, once you're in, you're in. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Brad, what do you have coming up here from like a sales perspective? You got any like fun, exciting stuff? You were talking about you have live music. Tell people what they can expect. What are the hours here? how can people kind of find you online and get involved if they want to start, shopping and seeing what you have available?
Sure. Yeah. ScottVW.com is the best place to start. And we have current incentives right now. We were just announced for June. We've got 1.9 financing on Atlas. I think 2.9 on Tiguan. So some really good rates that we haven't seen in a while. There's, I think, $1,000 customer bonus on Atlas and some other really good incentives that I got to get punched up to speed on. But so it's, this is sort of the selling season, now through the summer. This is where VW and all the brands really put the best incentives out there, because this is where they, sort of churn and burn, because they want to keep the products moving. So this is the best deals that we're going to see probably until, now through the summer. The deals will be real good. Things have been moving pretty quick. We're pretty happy with the pace of things right now. We're probably going to do a car show in the summer.
Nice.
We're looking at, sometime in July, and we'll put word on our website, socials, Scott VWRI on Insta, and on Facebook. We post there all the time. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah. If you know any musicians that want to come and play on Saturdays for us, let me know.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's some musicians listening that might be interested.
Yeah. Or our hours. Sorry, you asked that question.
Yeah.
Our hours are Monday through Friday. Service opens at 7 a.m. And sales opens at 9, and we close at 5:30. Sales closes at 6, and on Saturdays, sales is open from 9 till 6, and service is open from 8 till 1 on Saturdays as well.
And what is the address here?
777 Taunton Avenue, East Providence, Rhode Island. We're right on the Auto Mile on Route 44.
Amazing. And one last thing that I have to ask. Is there any truth that at the end of the month, you guys decide to give a bunch of deals out of nowhere on the 30th because you have to hit a quota? Is that a real thing?
Not really. Sometimes for some brands it is. It depends on how the brands structure their incentive programs. It's not that sort of old
taboo thought.
Yeah. It doesn't really exist. Nobody's really chasing at the end of the month. We're chasing at the start of the month the same way we would be chasing at the end of the month.
Exactly. I'm just thinking of every dad in New England that tells their son or daughter, don't you go to that dealership until the 30th of the month. Yeah. They'll give it to you for free. It makes such a difference. And I'm like, I don't know if it does. So.
No. In my experience, there's no difference. You're going to get a good deal no matter when you come.
Amazing. Yeah. Brad, thank you so much for sitting down with us and telling your story. That is going to conclude episode 6 of the So New England Spotlight podcast episode. And we will see you guys next time. Maybe we'll see you in a new VW from Scott's. That would be great. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ian.
All right.
Red Sox crack and the Celtics fly. Patriots fight and the Bruins grind. From 6 great states, we raise this sound. New